The skies over London were supposed to be blue that morning. Troop in the color was in full swing. Brass bands, polished boots, glinting medals, royal salutes. The king's birthday was meant to be a portrait of unity, but somewhere behind the smiles and ceremonial waves, chaos had already gripped the palace. William stood tall on the balcony beside Kate, cameras flashing in every direction, yet behind his composed face was a storm brewing. He wasn't thinking about the parade. He was thinking about the headline that cracked open the morning like a hammer through glass. Secret files. William's meetings with MPs for royal reforms. It hit like a political earthquake. William, future king and lifelong symbol of royal neutrality, was being accused of secretly meddling with Parliament. The article had names, timestamps, fake emails, everything a scandal needed to catch fire online. William reform was trending within hours. People were already taking sides. Was he a reformist prince or just the latest royal villain? And just like that, public trust began to wobble. At Kensington Palace, things were anything but calm. The legal team had confirmed what William already knew in his gut: the documents were fake. The headers were from outdated government templates. The signature? Sloppy digital forgery. It wasn't just fake, it was stupid fake. But the damage? Very real. William slammed the file shut and looked across the room at Kate, who was comforting little Charlotte after the parade. "Someone tried to take us out," he said quietly. Kate nodded. "And they did it during the parade on purpose." Across the palace courtyard, in a lesser monitored section known as the Royal Mews, the smell of betrayal still lingered in the carpet. Camera footage from 2 days ago had already been reviewed. It showed Tom Parker Bowles, Camilla's son from her first marriage, sneaking into the guest room at 5:42 a.m., holding what looked suspiciously like a fold. At 6:00 a.m. sharp, the article was published by the Daily Herald, citing anonymous sources and leaked files. The timeline wasn't just suspicious, it was surgical. Now here's where it gets messier. Tom wasn't just Camilla's son, he was her favorite. A food critic by trade, but a media darling by nature. He had friends in high places and no real role in royal affairs, yet always seemed to linger around the right door. William knew he had media access. What he didn't know until now was how far he'd go to weaponize it. Meanwhile, Camilla was playing the long game. On the surface, she remained calm, ever the composed queen beside an aging King Charles. But beneath the calm, she was maneuvering like a chess grandmaster. She knew Charles wasn't getting any younger. His health had been shaky, and if the heir to the throne was suddenly viewed as politically tainted, someone else had to step in, someone like her. She began whispering ideas to conservative MPs behind closed doors, small nudges at first, suggestions about expanding the Counselor of State role for the sake of stability, all while claiming to support William in these difficult times. William didn't need a tabloid headline to tell him he was being set up, but what he needed now was proof. Solid, inarguable, legal proof that not only were the files fake, but that they were forged and leaked by people within the palace itself, more specifically from Camilla's office. He turned to Mr. Hargrove, the royal family's chief legal counsel. "We're not just defending ourselves," William said. "We're declaring war on whoever thinks they can play games with the monarchy." Hargrove nodded grimly. "Then it's time to start digging, Your Highness, because if this trail leads where we think it does, someone in this family is about to go down hard." In a sleek private office overlooking the Thames, Tom Parker Bowles leaned back in his leather chair, swirling a glass of white wine as his phone buzzed non-stop. "You're the royal insider now," one text read. Another came from a talk show producer offering an exclusive interview slot. Tom smirked, savoring the moment. He had spent years nibbling around the edges of media fame, cookbooks, reviews, lifestyle columns, but this was a front-page reputation maker. The leak was working, and as long as no one traced it back to him or his mother, the crown wouldn't know what hit them. But inside the palace walls, the storm clouds were building fast. A fresh discovery from the Royal IT department had just shaken the war room at Kensington. The device that accessed the internal royal briefing files, the ones that were twisted into the fake leak, was directly linked to Queen Camilla's private office network. Even worse, the IP used to email those files to the Daily Herald came from a location just 2 blocks from Tom's flat. William stared at the report, tapping his fingers on the table. "That's not just circumstantial," he said. "That's a full-blown trail." Thompson, head of Palace Cybersecurity, stepped forward. We also pulled hallway footage from the Royal Mews. Tom was there just before the leak went public, and he wasn't empty-handed. Kate stood nearby, listening closely. That's their play, she said softly. Use the parade to distract the world, then drop the story when everyone's watching the monarchy. William nodded. They wanted it to look like we were hiding something while waving to the crowd. Elsewhere in the palace, Camilla was already preparing the next move. She had quietly invited 3 influential MPs to tea in a small, less conspicuous drawing room. There was no press, no royal aides, just her, Tom, and a tray of Earl Grey and butter biscuits. Her tone was warm, gracious, almost maternal. King Charles needs strong support in these uncertain times, she said sweetly. And with recent questions around William's political neutrality, perhaps it's time we rethink who helps manage state affairs. One MP, a balding man named Harold Grayson, raised an eyebrow. Are you suggesting the Counselor of State Powers be reassigned? Tom leaned in. Not reassigned, expanded. Just a few small adjustments for stability for the nation. Grayson exchanged glances with the other. The idea had traction, and Camilla could sense it. She had spent decades in the shadow of Diana, clawing her way into the monarchy's inner circle. Now, she wasn't about to let it slip away. Back at Kensington, William sat beside Kate reviewing more evidence. A new lead had come in from a trusted friend outside the palace, a cybersecurity analyst he'd known since university. There's a deleted email draft on a backup server near Tom's office, the message read. Retrieving it now. William's heart skipped. If they could connect Camilla or Tom to a direct instruction, something concrete, this wouldn't just be speculation, it would be undeniable. Kate placed her hand on his. You're handling this with grace, she said gently. William didn't smile. Grace doesn't win wars, he replied. Proof does. At that moment, Mr. Hargrove entered with a new update. We have the data logs from the printer in Royal Mews. Tom printed something at exactly 5:38 a.m. on the morning of the leak. Paper records confirm it was the briefing sheet that was later doctored. William stood up, pacing. Then, we're close. I want statements ready. If they try to push this councillor expansion through Parliament, we strike first. Camilla's not just reaching for power, she's undermining everything the crown stands for. And he wasn't going to let it slide. Balmoral Castle was draped in silence, its mist-covered grounds doing little to soften the tension thick inside the grand conference room. The heavy oak doors shut with a hollow thud as King Charles entered, flanked by Sir Andrew Parker, the Lord Chamberlain, and senior members of the Privy Council. At the long table sat William and Kate, side by side. Opposite them, Camilla maintained her signature poise, though her fingers twisted the edge of her lace handkerchief. Tom Parker Bowles sat next to her, eyes cast downward. Charles cleared his throat, voice steady but tired. Let us begin. Sir Andrew rose, holding a folder of evidence. Your Majesty, the findings are comprehensive. He gestured toward a screen behind him. We've reviewed access logs, surveillance footage, and email chains. All trails point to a coordinated effort to frame Prince William for political interference, using forged documents and a calculated media leak. These actions originated from devices linked to Queen Camilla's office. The material was delivered to the press by Mr. Tom Parker Bowles, who printed and emailed the files hours before their release. Camilla didn't flint. There is no proof I gave any order, she said softly. This is a misunderstanding. I've always worked to protect the monarchy, not harm it. Mr. Hargrove stepped in next, calm but direct. Your Majesty, we've recovered an unsent email draft from Tom's server. Written by the Queen herself, it reads, Darling, ensure the files are released by dawn. It must coincide with the parade. The story will spark just enough doubt to support our case for councillor expansion. Trust me. Tom swallowed hard. She told me it was harmless, just a little push. I didn't know it would become this. William stood slowly, his voice low. You try to remove me with fake files and tea time whispers. You think neutrality is a game you can bend. This wasn't a push. It was a knife in the back. Kate's voice followed, calm and firm. This isn't about ambition anymore. It's about loyalty and betrayal. Charles pressed his hand against his forehead. He looked at Camilla, his expression unreadable. You knew how fragile things are. My health, the future of the monarchy, and still you orchestrated this against my son? I did it for you, Camilla said quickly. For the throne, for continuity. No, Charles whispered. You did it for control. Sir Andrew stepped forward again. "Our recommendation is clear, Your Majesty. For the good of the monarchy, Queen Camila should be suspended from all public duties, removed from Counselor of State responsibilities, and officially designated as Princess Consort. Mr. Parker Bowles should be permanently banned from royal grounds and severed from all affiliations." Charles didn't speak for a long time. Finally, with trembling hands, he reached for the pen beside him and signed the order. The news broke within the hour. Buckingham Palace released a public statement clearing Prince William of all allegations, confirming the documents were forged and declaring new structural reforms to prevent internal abuses of power. Camilla was officially stripped of her queenly status, Tom's name vanished from palace rosters and media engagements alike. Public reaction was swift and thunderous. Support for William surged. Older citizens like Mrs. Eleanor, sipping tea with her friends, smiled with relief. "That boy stood tall," she said proudly, just like Diana would have wanted. At Kensington, William tucked George into bed. "Everything's all right now," he whispered. "We're going to make sure this family always stands for the truth." In Wiltshire, Camilla stared out of a window in solitude. Her empire had collapsed, not with rage, but with silence. She told herself she'd acted out of love. But deep down, she knew love doesn't come with schemes and signatures. The crown doesn't forget.